I'm crushing your head. I'm crushing your head. Remember that?
And we're live.
We're live.
Yes, I do.
Doing this little informal here.
I remember
All
that from a
fancy
bunch
stuff.
of different things from back in the day.
What was that called?
There was one of them where
Boys
they
on
did
the
that.
Wall or something like that?
It was Kids in the Hall.
Kids in the Hall, Boys on the Wall, whatever. That's what it was. Kids in the Hall.
Kids in the Hall.
I'm crushing your head.
It was a variety show.
Look at someone's calling me. It's a 320 number from Hinckley.
Oh, interesting.
No,
I wonder if they know that we're going live right now.
No, it's just somebody that uses the Google. See, there you are. Can you hear us?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, a little bit of a delay there.
Yes, there's a delay. So are we here or are we here?
We're here.
There you go. So there's a delay. So I recently got connected with this woman that's doing this holistic practitioner healer conference.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just starting to do it, just getting it together. So she's got a small little workshop or seminar and then some vendors and stuff in it.
Sure.
And I thought, well, I like that group of people and you like that group of people. And I just went into good old AI chat GPT and I said, give me some topics that are in the holistic healing industry. So I got a whole bunch of them. I'll just rattle them off and then we'll pick them one at a time. Here we go. Holistic wellness modalities. Reiki healing, acupuncture, meditation and mindfulness coaching, aromatherapy, yoga instruction, sound therapy, energy healing, herbal medicine, reflexology, and naturopathy. You know about those things?
I know about all of those things, actually.
You do. I had something else I was going to ask you about, and I can't remember what it was. It wasn't even related to this, but I knew that you're like a wealth of knowledge of stuff, and I was going to ask you about
Sure.
a topic. If that comes back up in our chit chat, I'll bring that up.
So I think it's interesting that they group energy healing and naturopathy in the same list. I thought that was really interesting. Reiki and energy healing, I understand. They're in the same market. But acupuncture and Reiki, not the same thing. Acupuncture and, sound therapy, also not exactly the same thing. Acupuncture and naturopathy, that's similar. Reflexology, that is similar.
I guess everything's going to have its crosses over and stuff, but there's a lot of people that have no clue about all this stuff. I've been dabbling with it since 90s, 80s, 90s.
Sure.
All that stuff. Like, do you like reflexology?
I've known about reflexology for many years.
Do you like having it done to you?
I find it's effective.
Really? I hate it.
It does help. I don't exactly always like it.
I don't like it at all. For those that don't know, reflexology is pushing on little spots in your feet, supposedly releasing something, but it hurts. So I must have a lot of blocks. Maybe after my ayahuasca ceremony, I don't have them anymore, and I might enjoy reflexology.
Well, some of them are painful.
It is. It's kind of like that other thing, rolfing.
Rolfing.
ROLFING. It's a sort of
rolling on the floor laughing.
I think more rolling on the floor crying because it's very painful. It's like a okay, any rolfing professionals out there, please forgive me. But it hurts. They really push on some stuff. They readjust a lot of stuff. It's almost a chiropractic kind of thing, but they really grind on you and people like it because it does move stuff around.
I just don't know what a rolfing is.
It's something that we got one. Yay, we stumped Casey.
Oh, yeah.
You can look it up and you go, oh my God, I know what that is.
Possibly. I mean, I might just not know.
But let's start with the Reiki healing, because some people go, well, that's a bunch of bunk.
Reiki healing is the only woo-woo energy healing method that has ever actually had like serious tests done on it, and it's something that they actually will recommend at places like the Mayo Clinic.
Really?
Yeah,
that's good, because it's really a hands-on healing kind of thing, and I don't get it all. I believe it because the idea of putting your hands together, you can feel the energy.
Yeah.
So, but how to control all that stuff, it's a whole nother world. But somebody's got to be trained in all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Reiki energy is very interesting. So Reiki energy, it's based on an idea that really all that's happening is that you're opening up these channels that are directly connected to light energy. And the Reiki energy kind of does the work. You're really just providing a channel for it. It's very different than any other healing modality that's out there with energy.
It's interesting. A lot of these things don't make any logical sense like that. Like, say, for example, jump forward to the ayahuasca kind of thing. You can have these intentions and stuff, but you might not understand what's happening because the ayahuasca plant medicine does it their way, her way, its way.
Yeah, it kind of gets what's necessary and then moves in that direction for you.
Yeah, like if you say, okay, I want to remove financial blocks, all of a sudden you got some weird thing about a toilet and it's overflowing, and you go, what does that have to do with my bank account? Then all you find out that you got all sorts of automated things that are flushing money down the toilet, and that's what it's trying to tell you.
Or something.
Something.
Yeah.
It's weird like that. And
it is weird.
A lot of people that don't believe in this stuff, like my wife does dream work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And dream analysis, people say you can open up a book, and if someone has an eagle in their dream or a snake in their dream, it means something. Maybe yes, maybe no. There's a commonality to it, which is, we're already off topic with this stuff. It's kind of interesting.
That's okay. We can be off topic.
I was going to bring up the concept of the octopus in ayahuasca stuff.
Concept of the octopus.
A lot of people see octopi.
Really? I haven't come across that one.
I've heard about it like when I was in Costa Rica. Some people saw octopi, and they says, yeah, that shows up a lot. And then I went on the internet and did some poking around, and yes, people see octopus.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I haven't come across that one yet.
So I researched some more stuff, and octopus are different kind of animals. They're
very different. There's a lot of people who won't eat them because they're very intelligent.
Yeah, stuff like that. I won't eat one, not because they're not intelligent, but because I'm intelligent. I'm not going to eat an octopus.
Oh, yeah. See, I'm weird. I'm one of those types of people who could, like, I've said this to people who know me before. Like, I can be riding down the road and I see a goose flying, and if I'm hungry and I'm thinking about food and I look at a goose, I think about food and I think about goose, and then I think about different ways to cook goose, like plum goose and like all this bunch of different ways of cooking goose, and I'm going, goose. Like, whereas other people I know look at something flying and then they go goose, and they go, oh, poor goose. I don't think poor goose. I think, man, that is one tasty goose. That looks like a tasty goose.
So sorry, vegans and vegetarians. Casey likes poultry.
I actually, yeah, fowl is not my favorite kind of food.
Or language. So here's the next thing. Acupuncture. There's acupressure and then there's acupuncture. I've had acupuncture done. Monica likes it. She finds it helpful. I didn't really get much out of it. What's your take on
I've had acupuncture done a bunch of times. It is extremely effective based on the evidence. So if you go to evidentiary stuff, there's a lot of stuff that talks about how effective acupuncture is. And by contrast, the acupressure. So like, that's also very effective. Like, if you compare the two, they're both based on the same theories.
Sure. And the meridians and so when you see that map of all the different energy points and meridians and stuff, and a skilled acupuncturist, a little needle, how do they know they're hitting that thing, or is it just kind of getting in the range of the meridian?
They're very practiced. I mean,
so whenever they know exactly where to put that little needle.
Yeah, they know exactly where to put that needle. They're very practiced. It's super precise. And I mean, they measure everything based off of Chinese measurements, though. So you have to learn kun. That's one of their measurements, is a kun. And
you mean like an inch? A kun is a
Kun is it's a measurement between like points on your body, and they use fingers for measurements, and a kun is one of those measurements.
So it sounds like it's kind of an approximation.
I mean, not really. They know exactly where it's going to be.
I was just going to say, maybe intuitively they say, okay, it's 1 kun, so I got to go over here to this space, but I think it should be a little further back.
Yeah, yeah. I think somebody who's been doing it for a long time probably would do that. I mean, I've done acupuncture, and then also I've read books on acupuncture. I've actually read several books on it. Whenever I was a kid, I used to study acupuncture and acupressure for martial arts.
Mm-hmm. I know there's some spaces in there you can get stuff and twists and stuff that Seagal does.
Yeah, there's certain points that you can press. There's some of them that are very viciously effective.
Mm-hmm.
If you utilize them,
like
you win.
place there behind the ear there.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah,
painful.
yeah, yeah. A lot of people discount stuff like that modernly because of MMA. MMA actually is straight up banned them, so they don't use it in MMA. They don't use it to any strikes or anything like that in MMA. It's one of the very few things that they ban.
Well, kind of, but they still can. They can still start doing stuff with like forearms on the shin bone and stuff that freaking hurts when they start doing these things. They
Yes,
do some of that.
yes, but the
there's some,
Atemi strikes are.
but there's some
You can do
punches
like
that you can
this or
punch
like
this
this.
way instead of punching with we're off topic.
Yeah,
Instead of punching this way, you're actually bending back and punching this way. So you can
right.
start getting into those ribs and stuff to get a person to move their arm down.
Yeah,
So all of a sudden they can slip a choke in there. So
right.
they just do these irritating little
Hmm.
rib punches.
Yeah, they're very effective too. I think I think utilizing pressure points and meridians and stuff like that in martial arts is just it's incredibly effective.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things.
So
you
the
can do.
next holistic topic is meditation and mindfulness. Are you a meditator?
I off and on. It's a little hard to meditate with 7 children running around your house all the time. I mean,
You just got to be good at it, Keith.
to be fair, only 6 of them live with me right this minute. So, but that's still a lot considering that my house is 998 square feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and not only is it a challenge, but I mean, you have to take up you have bathroom and living room and space and laundry area and
But
kitchen and
but
all of
even
that,
like
and then you're
driving
just
over here,
basically left with a little tiny square. That's
but
yours.
even driving over here, you're at a stop sign. You can stop and take a 30-second while the light's changing kind of meditation. You believe it? Do you think you have to do 20 minutes of meditation or an hour of meditation, or do you think you can do like little mini meditations?
Well, the evidence shows that you don't really start getting the benefit of meditation until about 5 minutes.
You can't stay at a light for 5 minutes.
You can't stay alive for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so really, to get the benefit out of meditation, you have to do it for about 5 minutes, and to maximize the benefits, it's somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes. So we're right in that neighborhood. More than that, and that's great. That's good that you're doing more than that, but it's not. You're already approached maximum benefit for your mind. But it's essentially meditation and mindfulness is the equivalent to lifting weights for muscles, except you're doing it for your will. So mindfulness and meditation exercises your will.
Okay, so your will to stay in a neutral space rather than judgmental.
Well, it's will in general. So like willpower, like your willingness to want to go through something difficult in order to achieve the results, or the will to um, keep breathing even though that you're in a lot of pain and you're not be handling things very well, or to stay conscious whenever you're getting hit in the head multiple times, or or any of that. But will meditation is it really is like lifting weights.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're buzzing right through these, and that was just
Yeah. Yeah, we should do it. That's fun.
Here's a good one: aromatherapy. That's interesting to me because the whole concept of the olfactory system, it's pretty powerful. Like you smell cookies and it reminds you of grandma. It takes you back all of a sudden.
Right. Well, you
Especially
know, the olfactory senses is the only sense on the human body that like has a direct interface. It doesn't go through something else. There's no filter. So the olfactory sense goes right into the brain, and then it just interprets what you're smelling.
Have you ever heard of anything where they do that? I know that they do, like in the ayahuasca stuff, they do oils and smoky stuff and all that stuff. But I wonder with meditation if you did something like that with essential oils, because you are doing the breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of a breathwork meditation or aromatherapy kind of thing.
I think it's effective. And, you know, there's a lot of evidence out there that would support that. It's the reason why it's used in massage therapy and acupuncture and acupressure and all that bunch of stuff. They use it. But it goes beyond that, too. There's actually some science about it. So there is this fascinating, like, new methodology. They talked about at my wife's last event. Obviously, I wasn't there because it's a female-only event. But, yeah, it was kind of cool. They have it at Your Authentic Reflections, in case there's any women on here. Your Authentic Reflections. They hold various different women's empowerment meetings on, what is it, the third Saturday
You got a drumming one coming up.
Yeah. So the last one, there was this lady there who was talking about utilizing aromatherapy, almost like EMDR. She used aromatherapy to help, like, bring people back to, like, various different points in their life and help them, like, be able to sort through trauma. And I was reading about it. It's apparently it's a really powerful technique. A lot of people are really into it, and that's not the only reason why I'm saying it's valid. Obviously, there's a lot of things that people are into that aren't necessarily valid, but there's evidence that backs a lot of stuff with smells and regression and dealing with trauma and having trauma triggered by smells, because, as I was saying earlier, it's literally the only sense that we have that has a direct connection directly to the brain. It bypasses all the filters that we have.
Right. So this is kind of morbid, but you think, because all the essential oils, you got the citrus stuff and you got peppermint and you got rose and lavender and all that. Yeah. I wonder if a therapist would use olfactory or aromatherapy type things like, like rotting human.
I've never run into somebody that's like, yeah, here, I'm going to dose you with the smell of rotting human. I don't know. Maybe they bring out some scent of. Sorry about that.
What was that all
about? Maybe they bring out some scent of corpse flower.
See what happened? There's something there.
I think it's maybe just the air just went off, and now all of a sudden I'm sneezing.
Oh, there we go.
It's possible.
That's a good excuse.
Wish I had a Kleenex over here. I'd be able to resolve that really quick. Oh, no thanks. Let me see. I think I might have something in here. Nope, not today.
He's going to suffer.
All right. That's all right. I'll just suffer with it. It seems to have calmed down. Yeah, all of a sudden my eyes are watering and I'm sneezing. So my wife and I, we happen to have the same time frame that we have allergies, like right around the same time, but we're allergic to totally different things. I'm allergic to ragweed. So, like, that's my biggest one, is I'm allergic to ragweed. My wife is allergic to catalpa trees. I didn't even know what a frick a catalpa tree was.
I don't either. It's a tree?
It's a tree that's common in the Midwest and up into the North area, and it grows these beans on it. So they get these beautiful flowers, and they get these beans on it. Ugh. Excuse me, lots of yawning today.
You're purging.
I am purging. I'm sneezing. I'm yawning. Yeah. My eyes are watering. I'm purging all of the allergens. But yeah, it's interesting because when I looked up the catalpa trees, because I was like, oh, I wonder if this is a common allergy. And I looked it up. Sure enough, it is a common allergy, and they do allergy shots for it, and they also do this other type of interesting allergy thing I was reading about. But then I was like, God, I wonder if there's catalpa trees under a different name. So I looked up the catalpa tree and I found, indeed, it did have a different name. I can't remember what it was. But also on top of that, I didn't know this, but catalpa trees are used as medicine. They're actually, apparently, they were a very effective medicine for Native Americans in,
Well, that's
this
an
region.
interesting segue into something I was thinking about asking you about is what is it that makes people be allergic to something? Why are they allergic to ragweed? Is it a ragweed deficiency or something? Or
I don't know.
Could you-
I honestly don't know, because some people get bothered by it. And then it's funny because it's in the modern world, we actually get bothered by more things than people back in the day did, right? People back in the day were like, I'm not allergic to anything. And that was the majority of everybody, right?
Well, this is a little off topic, but this is what I believe in. Like the whole thing about vaccinations. When you do that, now your antibodies can take a break. Or it'd be like if you didn't lift weights, you had a cast on your arm, you don't use your arm. When they take the cast off, all of a sudden, shit, I ain't got any muscle anymore.
Right.
So that
well,
could
allergies
be
are the opposite of that.
But well, what if we got all this filtered thing? There's a filter in your car to filter out everything in your car, and there's a filter in your air system and stuff.
Right.
You got it too damn good.
I maybe. I mean, there is a thing about overwashing.
Go hug a catalpa tree or whatever it is. What are those trees?
Catalpa trees.
Yeah, go hug a catalpa tree.
But yeah, they do have these things where you read about how overabundance of soap and everything else that we have now, and we wash like all the time, and now we're coming up with all these superbugs because of it.
Sure.
But they're thinking allergies are very similar, and a lot of people believe, and the science is unfortunately very hard to find on this, but a lot of people do believe that the vaccinations cause an increase in allergies.
Well, I believe it, and I don't need the science. I look at common sense that if you've got natural antibodies that are in your system to kill off germs, and then you start using something else to kill off the germs, the antibodies will go, I'm heading to Miami. I'm going on vacation.
Well, I mean, vaccinations. Okay, so when you talk about vaccinations, there's pre-COVID and then there's post-COVID. Basically, the CDC changed the definition of vaccinations in order to make the COVID vaccine. This is not conspiracy theory or anything like that. It's actually what happened. It happened real time, and anybody who's followed any of this stuff knows this.
We'll see what happens when I put the shorts up on YouTube to see if they block it or not.
Oh, I'm sure that if you have it on X, they won't block it, but anything else, I'm sure will probably get pissy about this. But basically, the vaccination that they post about and they talk about with the post 2020, right? So post COVID. Now a vaccination is basically a shot that they give you to fight a disease, right? Whereas before that, it was a shot that they gave you to trick your immune system into thinking that it was exposed to a certain illness, which caused the antibodies to then react to that particular illness. So getting a vaccination against, say, measles, right? Basically, they put a little bit of something in your body that looks like measles, and it might be dead measles, right? And they put it in your body.
Yeah.
And then your body goes, oh, measles, and it attacks it, right? Now, measles in particularly is a fascinating one, because measles, they did a study on measles. I think it was like 5 years ago, and what they found was when you get measles, it actually makes your immune system have retrograde amnesia. Meaning,
Retrograde amnesia?
yeah. Meaning that you get measles and and your immune system goes, oh yeah, I don't remember anything before this point. It's like resetting your immune system. So I've thought for years, I'm like, you know, you get all these people with allergies and everything else. I wonder if just getting measles would have been fine for them. They just get measles, and yeah, is it going to suck?
So it's a
is the measles
reboot.
going to suck? But it's like rebooting your whole system. Our brains need that sometimes, so why not the rest of us?
Well, again, I'm not a medical person, but sometimes I think of ideas, and if you talk about like the psilocybin and stuff, it's supposed to be like intelligent network.
It is. Yeah.
So what if
weird.
what if your antibodies are also intelligent?
Well, they
and if
are.
you try and trick it into doing something like these measles, it's bullshit. Now the antibody says you're full of it. You cry wolf. I don't trust you anymore. And now something else comes along and go,
that's funny.
I'm not getting off the couch.
You traumatized your immune system. Okay, that's an interesting theory.
You didn't traumatize me, you just pissed him off.
Yeah.
So I'm not working for you anymore.
That's
you got
amusing.
a cold. So be good to your immune system.
Oh yeah.
I eat some dirt once in a while.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. They've actually done studies on that where young people that ate dirt whenever they're growing up, usually it's because they were lacking some kind of micronutrient. And so they were eating dirt, trying to get the micronutrient. And what they found was later in life, they actually have a better immune system.
That's what happened with me and my best friend. He was, wash your hands, David. Take care of everything. And he gets sick all the time, and I don't.
Right.
Because put a quarter in your mouth and take that out of here. People have been touching that. Enough. I'm healthy now.
Right.
No. So next thing is yoga. Yoga instruction or yoga.
I think yoga goes along with mindfulness and meditation. I think yoga is wonderful.
It does.
It's also very good for your limberness and your joints.
And I think that that's one of the most important things. I do a lot of stretching, and I don't do sessions of stretching, but I just make sure that I stretch stuff out in weird ways, and just twisting things around. And I think that helps keep your muscles kind of loosened up so the blood can flow through your muscles and flush things out. I think it's good.
Oh, yeah.
And then the yoga includes a lot of breathing and focusing on your breath as you're doing the yoga. Some people think it's like
some of it does
and stuff, like you're doing some kind of do these little poses and postures. They think it's all twisting up and all that.
Well, that's the majority of the yoga that you end up running into. I mean, basically, most people are like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and go do yoga. So they're exposed to things that are like Western yoga, like yoga flow. It's a vinyasa flow is what they call it. And that's vinyasa is only one type of yoga. And, a vinyasa flow is just really just turning it into a different kind of workout. And it's
similar
really
to like martial arts, there's a lot of different kinds.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine used to teach yoga, and I did Bikram yoga for a year. You know what that is?
Yeah,
it's the
kind
hot
of
stuff. It's the hot. And there's I think 26 postures that you do or something like that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing all the time. And
Hatha
it is kind of
that's the other one.
And he used to call it Nazi yoga.
Nazi yoga because it's so hard.
It's so because it kind of is. You're supposed to hold these poses, and you stay there, and you do that. And it's kind of regimented. Then you go to the next thing, and it's the same thing all the time. But it was good year of good yoga.
That's
and
nice.
Now I'm in a thing called surrender, and it's just the posture, and basically you get into the posture, and you kind of let gravity do its thing. And it's
gosh, I'm trying to think of the name of it.
Yin yoga.
So I did yoga in my 20s. I did yoga like literally every single week for like a year, twice a week actually. I did it for an entire year.
Some people do it daily.
I was extremely flexible. It helped out a ton. And my favorite yoga class during that time frame, it was like recovery yoga or something like that, but it was the same thing. And basically what they did is they would take like rolled up blankets and rolled up mats and things like that to help you hold the position.
Yeah.
And they would get you into these positions, and then they would just go, okay, just lay there.
Lay there and just try to relax into it.
Yep. Lay there and relax into it. And it was funny because the first time that I did it, I had been doing yoga at this point for like 6 months. And somebody was like, yeah, you really need to come to this yoga session. I'm like, oh, that sounds like lazy yoga. So I went in and I went to go do it. And after the very first session of doing that yoga, I was sore. My muscles were sore. I was like, holy cow, I feel like I've been lifting weights.
Oh, totally. I mean, there's that one thing you take and you stretch, you wrap it around like that, and you stretch it up a whole bunch.
Yeah, what do they call that again?
Just stretching.
It's like
I don't
like
know.
serpent's pose or something.
Well, they
like
have
that.
names for all the stuff: the down
Yeah.
dog and the
Yeah,
the pigeon pose and
downward facing dog. I think that's the one that most people are familiar with.
the
Yeah.
I can't remember all the names, but then they got the different
Laughing Buddha. That's another one.
all that stuff. Yeah, there's laughing yoga too.
Yeah,
I have never done that.
laughter yoga. That's another one that my wife's done here. My mom loves laughter yoga. So my mom actually, she got into laughter yoga and hula hooping. And that was her big thing for like trying to get in shape was laughter yoga and hula hooping. And so she went home to where she is in California, right? And she lives in this little ghetto area of Norwalk in Southern California. And anybody wants to look that up, you can look it up. It's like basically it's not as much of a ghetto now as it used to be, but it was ghetto. And she lives in the one way, so it's like actually is kind of ghettoish. And so she'll go outside and she'll start doing it, and all the little kids in the whole neighborhood will be like, come by and be like, oh, can I do it with you? And then she lets them go and like do it with her, and she ends up with a whole bunch of kids around with their hula hoops because she'll make her own hula hoops and everything else. And she'll end up with all these kids around doing hula hoop and going, ha 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 ha, hoo 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 hoo, hee 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 hee, doing the laughter yoga.
Yeah,
It's
I
pretty
haven't jumped
cool.
into that yet, but
It works. It works. Like it leaves your whole body like sore, like you'd been
oh, I've
getting
done that before
pummeled.
where I'm laughing, you got stomach muscles.
Yeah,
Yeah, it definitely does. It's good for you.
it is.
So here's the next one that's kind of fun, and that's sound therapy. Um, I'll tell an interesting story. There's a guy, his name is Jonathan Goldschmidt or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's from someplace, probably California. He came up here with Jim Albani, and Jim did a toning thing, and I went to Lake Harriet where we went and did drumming.
Yep.
Lake Harriet Spiritual Community in Linden Hills area. So this was when I was getting into spirituality and stuff. So I was going to a lot of places and try and cover as much as I could. So I go to Lake Harriet and then I go to Unity. So I went to this sound thing with Jim Albani, and we're meditating and A-E-I-O-U and the sounds, and he's doing the things with the bowls and all this stuff. And I see this visual of a honeycomb and bees. And
oh, interesting.
I left that thing and went to Unity, Unity Church in Golden Valley. And I get over there, and their topic of the day that the guy was up in front talking, I don't even know what those are, priests or pastors or whatever the hell they are, but the guy with the lectern, they tell you a little story about Jesus and all that stuff. And they brought up the topic of the octagon and the beehives and the honeycomb and all that stuff. And I thought, wow, that's what I just saw at Lake Harriet. So I went over to Unity, and then I got done with the thing there, and I went back to Lake Harriet. And then they were talking about the honeycomb and the bees. That was a weird experience that I had because I didn't tell anybody about it, but I visualized it. Then I go to two places that were talking about bees and honeycomb.
That's interesting. Almost like a little bit of precog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jonathan Goldschmidt or something like that. But he's a sound therapy guy. So what is your take on the sound therapy thingy?
I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. I mean, it sounds reasonable. I mean, it has a whole like design element that they have to it and reasoning why it works, that sounds very reasonable. I don't think it's, I don't, I have not had any luck with it myself. I should say that.
Luck.
So, well, meaning that I've gone to sound healing and I come out of it feeling relaxed because, like, you know, you go into these sound healing things and it's basically like going to a powwow where you know, you lay on the ground and you're just laying still and everybody else goes, and they do like the drums and the singing bowls and whatnot, and they do all of that all around you.
Well, I look at it as kind of like when I did my Costa Rica ayahuasca thing at Rhythmia. We did some of that stuff, and I remember I shared some of those beings that I saw and the concept of the light spectrum. We only see what we can see, and then there's the other elements of the light that you can't see.
Yeah.
And if you vibrate at a different light frequency, now I can see these beings that weren't really there, but I could see them. So they were there.
Right. Totally
Same thing in the sound. There's so much sound you can hear, and there's other sounds that you can't hear. And then there's the tuning fork where you hit the little tuning fork and you connect it with the other tuning fork. All of a sudden, it'll pick up that vibration.
Right.
So maybe it's something like that where you didn't experience it because you're already in tune with that spectrum. Maybe you got a different hertz levels or something.
Yeah.
And something
I don't know.
else might take place, because you've seen that stuff with where they got the different hertz levels and it makes the cool geometric pattern with the iron filings or the sugar.
And they have sound waves. They have sound waves that are able to destroy walls. They have sound waves that are able to make people poop their pants. They have sound waves. Yeah, so the military has worked on sound wave weaponry for a very long time.
I saw some of that stuff happening when they were talking about all those 5G towers and stuff going on.
Yeah.
Remember some stuff about the blue umbrella and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. They talk about a lot of that stuff, but I mean, we're talking the stuff that is public knowledge, right? So this isn't like in the conspiracy theory market. This is more in like old conspiracy theory that has since been made, you know, fact based on military articles.
It's no longer a theory.
So they would have directed energy weapons. That's what they call them, is directed energy weapons. They basically, there's this type of speaker that is on a metal plate, and then they hook up the sound vibrations to it, and literally the sound waves don't spread like a normal cone speaker. They're in a very specific electronic channel that goes forward, and if I turn it away from you and the sound isn't hitting you, you won't hear it. And they take these weapons and they mount them on APCs and armored vehicles and things like that, and they get out and they're like, and they turn them on and they point them at crowds, and it makes the crowds literally feel, and they use this in Iraq, so this is the reason why people know about it. And it was deemed to be cruel because it was making people feel as though they were being punished by God, because it would make their skin feel like it was on fire. It felt like they were in a lake of fire.
Wow.
That's how they were describing it, as though they were completely surrounded by fire and their skin burned and itched.
Did it actually burn?
No.
But
it just made them feel like it. So these people would like end up on the ground, like writhing around, going, like they're burning. And then they ended up saying that it was they didn't want them to use it anymore. They were like, don't deploy this anymore because it's cruel and unusual punishment. It's making people who are not Christian feel like they're experiencing Christian hell, basically. That was the arguments.
It turns into a religious argument instead of
that was what they were. Yes, it
humane
was really weird. They turned it into a religious argument, and it was all about sound and sound weapons. And if you can have sound as a weapon, it makes sense you can have sound as a healing method.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Things vibrating at certain frequency. And I understand about the concept of focusing in. You can do that with light.
Sure.
The laser beam.
But it's all just more frequency. Beam. It's just, you know, whenever you're dealing with light spectrum, it's just the frequency is just different than the sound spectrum.
Well, it's interesting, the whole concept of like I remember going to a Deepak Chopra thing. He was talking about in this little space right here are all the frequencies. Your pager, your phone, your phone, your phone, your phone. the band, the CB radios, the radio station, the TV stations, they're all in that one spot.
Yeah.
You just got to be able to tune in to hear it.
Right.
So that could be something where they shoot a certain wave at someone and everybody's tuned into it. I can see how everybody feels they're all crazy at the same time.
Sure. There's a guy that I watch, Museum of Tarot. That is his moniker. And you can find him on YouTube or TikTok and other things like that. He's called Museum of Tarot. So the guy's fascinating. He's got tons of stuff in there. He's a neuroscientist, and he finds all of this sciencey stuff everywhere about, like stuff that people would consider to be conspiracy theory. And then he goes, well, let me separate the stuff that's completely woo-woo and totally phony from the real stuff. So he actually spends time with the science of it, separating off things from like human past, like temples, for example. Schumann frequency, talks about Schumann frequency.
I don't know what that is.
Schumann frequency is the frequency of the planet. It's typically if our magnetosphere is healthy and the earth is healthy at that moment, then it resonates at a very specific frequency, and it's called the Schumann frequency, and that's the frequency that our body is supposed to experience on a regular basis.
You mean the earth?
Yes. It resonates at a frequency.
Yeah. Don't they do that in drumming too, don't they? Try and get the drum beat that's the same as the earth heartbeat?
They do. And anyhow, so going back to the Schumann frequency and this and all these different frequencies. So he does all these studies on frequencies, and he has something called a halo pulsar that he made and he sells. And basically it's completely real technology. He has all the patents there that you could look at, you could read, and all of the original research that it was based on from back in the early 1900s. He even points to, and he doesn't talk about this one very much, but he even points all the way back to the original radar experiments where they did, like, I don't know if you're familiar with them, whenever they first came up with radar, right? They mounted the radar, and this guy goes and he works on the radar antenna, and they're like, okay, stand back a little bit. And they put on the radar antenna, and of course he's staying there, and they put on the radar, and then they go, okay, we need you to move it. And the guy's moving it and everything else. Well, the guy ended up dying of radiation poisoning because it was like, you're dealing with radar, and he's getting into massive quantity, and he ended up with like burns on his hands and stuff like that. And they had no idea. They had no idea that it would do this to people. And now here we go, fast forward many years later, and they try and tell people, oh, that's not a real thing. You can't turn frequencies on that are cell phone frequencies and stuff like that, and they're not going to hurt you. Well, that's BS. Like, we've known that they were going to be problematic ever since the very beginning. It's the reason why back in the early days of AT&T and all of that, I full disclosure, I sold cell phones at the time, so I actually had to deal with a lot of this stuff. Everybody was worried about how having a frequency that close to you could cause you potential damage. So they would hand out lit with it saying, oh, but it has to be this much. And that's why we sell holsters, so you don't have it like in your pocket. And that's why we have wireless headsets, so that way you don't actually have to have it near your head and all of that. And now they've gone all the way to the point where they're saying, oh, none of that is real. BS. Don't believe that. It absolutely is real. You should go take a look at it, look it up. It's real. All these frequencies can affect you. So anyway, going back to the Halar pulsar, the reason why he has a Halar pulsar is because the science of it shows that even a very low frequency that's on your body is going to overpower a cell phone or like this, or a cell phone tower that is down the road, or any of the other antennas that may be in the area, such as radio, like FM radio, AM radio, all of that. And this Halar pulsar that he has on, you can set it for different frequencies based on little dip switches on it, because it's small, so it just uses dip switches. But the one that it defaults at is Schumann frequency. So you default it at the Schumann frequency, and you put it on, and it constantly goes tap, 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 with the Schumann frequency the whole time. So that way you're not getting the constant interference with this. And he actually has videos showing the test of it. So he has a meter that basically turns the sound, takes the frequencies that you can't hear, the magnetic frequencies and all that kind of stuff, and turns it into a sound, right? So you can actually hear it. So whenever you get close to something, it goes, and you can hear it, and it sounds like, you know, static and disruption and everything else. And then he puts it next to the Haler pulser, and he hears almost like a little like ticking, right? And that's that Haler pulser, since it's doing Schumann frequency, it's the natural state that we're supposed to be in. So it actually is blocking out all these other frequencies that can bother us, including Wi-Fi. So it's very interesting. But it's just on your body, so it's just protecting your body.
It's a force field.
It's like a force field protecting you against these things. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I want to buy one, but they're a little expensive.
That'd do a deal. You just gave him a commercial.
I did. I totally just gave him a commercial.
Maybe if you're listening, send one to Casey.
Maybe he will send me one because, you know, I mentioned him, and, you know, yeah, the Museum of Tarot, and he will be kind enough with my extremely low viewership to send me one anyways, just because he's cool.
There you go. You're focused. Here's our next topic. Dun, dun, dun. Energy healing.
So energy healing and Reiki really should have been talked about as one topic. They're really the same thing. It's just a different modality. There's a bunch of different types of energy healing out there. I personally do believe in energy healing. I have experienced energy in a tangible. A lot of people don't like the word energy. If they're into physics, they're like, well, I understand frequency.
I was just going to say, what is energy?
Well, according to science, you're talking about a frequency. It's not really energy. It's frequency, the frequency and modulation of frequency. So that's a good way to talk about it.
Let's talk about that for a second. In that, what is this frequency? Frequency of what?
Of this reality, of this body. I don't know.
Is it just the body, or is it like, isn't there energy in the air right now? Not necessarily the radio waves, but isn't there like natural energy coming from Alpha Centauri or something?
Well, that would be the Schumann frequency, because our planet lets off the Schumann frequency, and that kind of overtakes all of it.
But is the Schumann frequency the same on Earth as it is in Jupiter or maybe another solar system?
No, it would not be the same as any other planet. The frequency, the Schumann frequency, is caused by the unique structures that we have here on the planet.
Here's my take on the frequency. It's not really scientifically based, but in the beginning, there was God.
Yep.
All that is and all that is not. And then God said, bang, I want there to be an image of me. Now there's a thing.
Light. Let there be light.
Yeah. And then, well, if there's light, there needs to be something else. And now it goes between the light and the dark, and the light and the dark, and the light. That's the frequency. And now that replicates itself and eventually gets from wherever the Big Bang happened over to our planet. And that's where the energy and the frequency and stuff is coming from. Is that an interesting theory?
I mean, it's not far off of what a frequency is. I mean, if you're looking at the background frequency of the universe, the whole universe has a pulse that happens behind it. There's actually a very interesting sound pulse that happens behind the whole universe. It's the heartbeat of the universe. You can go on NASA's website and you can actually listen to it. A lot of people do YouTube things where they have the pulse of the universe and talk about it. Of course, if you go in Sanskrit, Sanskrit has a whole bunch of original sounds. There's Om. It's supposed to be the actual sound of the universe itself. But the thing is, it was supposed to be a very specific tone you were supposed to do too. It was, oh.
Like the Tibetan throat singer people. Oh. Tibetan monks.
Yeah. And whenever they're talking about it, it's supposed to be literally the sound of the universe, or the beginning of the universe itself. There's other ones too. Gom. So Om Gam, that's another way they say it. Om is like, it's like divine
Opum Gangnam
beginning.
style.
Gam is the sound of Ganesh. That is the remover of obstacles. So Gam would be the sound of, it's another sound that's a primordial sound of the universe. Gam. And it's supposed to be something that moves the obstacles from your path.
Sound, that we're off the energy, but that is kind of the same kind
Well,
of
it is.
thing. But sound
We
is
just
interesting.
debated that frequency and energy are the same thing. So
Yeah.
we're talking about frequency. So
The
same thing.
sound is interesting in that it's a global thing. The music, the concept of sound and music and drumming
It is
all over the world.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting as you talk about language and you talk about sounds and you talk about music and you talk about all of it, and all of the various different societies around the planet have this kind of concept that there is original sound that existed before we existed. They have they have concepts of that. They have concepts of names being power, and what are names but a sequence of sounds.
Like Abraham.
Yeah, yeah. Or like I just said, Gom or Om.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, energy stuff is interesting because they say that everything's energy.
Yeah.
And you got the molecules, and then what happens between the proton and the neutron. There's space
Right.
there. That's still energy.
Yeah.
It's something coming.
And I
back.
explain what I do, like energy healing. Like I explain what I do more like pranic healing, because
This is
has
a
to do
good
with life force.
segue. This is a good segue to what he does. The next topic is herbal medicine.
Herbal medicine. I
That would
know
be,
quite a bit about herbal medicine.
that wouldn't just be herbs. That would also be other plants.
Plant medicine. Yeah. Yeah, I believe wholeheartedly in herbal medicine and in various different types of.
Well, that's where Big Pharma
plant
got it in the
medicine,
first
yeah.
place. They go and they harvest the shit out of the Amazon jungle
Oh,
and put
yeah,
a patent on
yeah.
it.
Birth control pill was from yams. It's from wild yams.
See how that works?
Yeah. Yeah, they basically they took a bioidentical, which is estrogen. They harvest it from the yams, which you can't patent it. So then they take it and then they synthesize the estrogen, added a little tiny extra little thing on the end of it to make it a different chemical sequence. And then because it's now synthetic estrogen, now they can patent it. So then they patented it, made it into what we now know as the pill, and or progesterone actually is what it would be, but yeah. And then they made it into what we now know of as the pill, and that is what they provide for people that's out there. And it's silly because wild yam cream, like you can get concentrated like wild yams, they take it and they make it into wild yam cream, does exactly the same benefits for the body, except it is not a hormone blocker. So it doesn't mess with the rest of your hormones. And you just take it and you can rub it on your skin and it soaks into your skin. So yeah. Here we have, you know, big pharma regularly taking things that are natural, screwing with them, making what is natural illegal, and then selling it back to you at a premium.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I was wondering why certain stuff is illegal. Why is marijuana illegal? I don't know if people get killed from marijuana like they do with alcohol.
No,
Why is alcohol?
they don't.
Why is alcohol legal and cigarettes is illegal and firearms are illegal?
Well, cigarettes aren't illegal. They're just
Well, they are for certain.
really restricted.
Well, I guess I misspoke. That's my point. Is they're not illegal. Alcohol isn't illegal. It's
Right.
available, and so is firearms, and so is
Right.
tobacco.
Right.
You just got to have a note from your mom to get it.
It essentially it is. Have a note for your mom. He's dating himself there.
That's the way we used to do it. You get milk
that
from your
was
mom,
totally the way it used to be.
go pick
Yeah.
me up a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, my dad tells the tales about that, going to go pick up packs of cigarettes. I remember whenever I was in high school, there was a place I used to go buy cigarettes from. Yeah. I haven't smoked for many, many years, but yeah, that was the thing. I knew exactly the places where I could go to go buy cigarettes, and they were just.
So let's talk more about the herbal medicines and plant medicines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, tobacco is a strong medicine. Let's talk about tobacco for instance. So this has been on the
raw
news.
tobacco, not stuff that's been embedded with cyanide and shit to kill you.
Yes, yes. So the tobacco that we smoke in this country, due to the FDA and ATF and other different groups that are out there, they have regulated the way that the tobacco has to be treated after it's harvested. If you get that kind of tobacco, it's been treated with all kinds of chemicals, and so you're putting in tons of chemicals into your body. The point of talking about the subject matter, though, is talking about nicotine in general, right? Let's get this straight. Our society loves nicotine. And I'm not just talking about people who smoke. Our society loves nicotine. We use nicotine for everything. We spray nicotine on everything. We put nicotine in everything. We utilize nicotine on a regular basis. In fact, we've genetically altered our corn to produce nicotinoids because that way it helps keep bugs away. Like, that sounds healthy, right? Have our corn have nicotine in it. It's very bizarre. They added fish genes to our freaking corn, for gosh sakes. It's like, great, okay,
So what
I
does
want to
nicotine do
have
for you?
my fish grow on the corn.
What is
Nicotine is very
you
interesting.
don't want corn with fins.
So neopeptides that are found in things like COVID, nicotine will actually disrupt the ability for those peptides to actually bond inside our system. So this has been in the news in the last 3 years. We've had all this stuff with COVID and everything else. And one of the things that they have now found that disrupts COVID is nicotine. It's the reason why there was a disproportionate amount of smokers that didn't end up in the hospital or die. Virtually none. Why is that? You would think that they would have been at the top end of the risk factor.
Right.
So they started studying it, and what they found is that the spike protein that is in the COVID-19 and the nicotinoids with the and the various different infrastructure, the way they would react inside the body, is that these spike proteins would go boop, and then they would bond, right? So they would do their attack, and then you would have nicotine in your system, and nicotine would come along and go, oh yeah, boop, and it would just knock it off, and then this COVID would then be flushed out in your urine and in your feces.
Right. So people would
It's
think
amazing.
people would think because you're a smoker, that's your lungs and COVID attacks the lungs, that the smokers would die. But they don't, because they have nicotine, and COVID doesn't like nicotine.
And it's not just COVID. There's tons of stuff that's out there. So I'll call out my brother-in-law here. So my brother-in-law, he is an avid Hoppe user. So people who aren't familiar with Hoppe, it is, or Rape, it is from South America. It is a type of tobacco that they would grow. It is a very strong type of tobacco that they would grow, that they take that particular type of tobacco, they roll it up, and they chop it up, and they grind it up, and they turn it into a very fine powder, and then they stick it in a little tiny bone tube. This is a traditional way of doing it. Then modernly, you don't have to have a bone tube, but they'd put it in there, and then you stick it in your nose, and then somebody else goes on the other end of that, or they have one that's curved like this, and then you go and you blow this crap up your nose. Like, it's like snuff, right? That's basically where snuff came from. This is just a more extreme delivery method of it.
Yeah, it is.
And
someone else blowing your nose.
Yeah, somebody else blows it into your nose instead of you going and snorting it into your own nose, right? Because it's not going to go up there very high if you do it like that. Whereas if they go and they blow it in there, it goes and it just covers everything in your whole nose.
A power hit.
It's intense. Ahape is very intense. I did not like it very much. My wife calls it nose rape because it burns and it stings and it's a little uncomfortable because that's how rape is spelled. It's R-A-P-E with a little above it, a little accent, and yeah. Anyways, nose rape. That's what she calls it because it's uncomfortable. However, my brother-in-law, avid user of it, he believes in it wholeheartedly. It's considered grandfather medicine in South America, and ayahuasca is considered grandmother medicine. So they tend to be used together.
Oh.
And essentially the tobacco, every time he would get like an illness, he would just go, oh yeah, I need to spend some intense time in a sweat lodge doing rape. And he would go do that. This man has gotten everything from COVID all the way to Lyme's disease. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, so he had the big bullseye and everything else, and he's like, no, I'm going to heal this naturally. I'm like, dude, you're a nutcase. Like, why are you trying to heal this stuff naturally? And he's like, no, I can do this naturally with plant medicine. And I'm like, I wouldn't mess with that one. That's a that attacks your nervous center. It has all kinds of problems. He did. He's like, I'm going to deal with it naturally. Rape, tobacco, big plant medicine, and the evidence is now out there on how effective this particular plant medicine is at dealing with COVID. That, ivermectin, and the CoQ10, those are the things that they were talking about, that they were like, oh yeah, these things are like amazing things for dealing with COVID. And obviously, I mentioned ivermectin, which is an amazing award-winning drug that won the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, sorry, Nobel medical prize for
whatever that is,
for the developments of it. It won the Nobel Prize. And ivermectin, if you mention it online, that your stuff gets cut down. So when you cut this up into shorts, if you have one that mentions me saying ivermectin, it will get pulled.
We'll see.
Yeah. So if they don't, that's a testament to all the people who've gotten pissed off that everything's being pulled over the years, because it's ridiculous. They even went after Joe Rogan for the ivermectin one. He said, this is Joe Rogan saying it. He's like, I got more flack for talking about ivermectin than I did anything else I talk about. And I talk about like injecting, like this is him talking. He's like, I talk about doing DMT and all kinds of stuff, and this is the one that they pick on me about. Yeah, it was kind of a funny thing.
Well, we reached our after 6 o'clock, so we've gone for an hour.
Don't we have one more thing on the list?
We already covered it because we talked about that at the end, at the beginning. Reflexology.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, we didn't like that.
Sweet.
So now we should what? We should just close it off. Why don't you talk about you and what you're doing?
You know what I would really like to do, and I noticed that we lost our viewers, but I would like to remind people that we appreciate interaction. And the best way to interact with us, I would say, is before a show, if you were to just send a message to our Facebook group, so you can send a message to his or mine. And it'll show up for us. It'll show up on our phone, and then we can pull it up and we can go, oh, somebody's asking about this particular topic or this particular question. They have something specific they would like to deal with. Direct messages get through. If you post on the video while we're talking, we're not going to see it. We have a screen way over there. And as you see, we try not to monitor our phones while we're at this. It's distracting, and it's not as fun for us to be distracted while we're trying to talk.
You know how to get a hold of us.
Yeah. So yeah, have fun with that. I and absolutely love dealing with people with plant medicine and herbal medicine. And if you were interested in a free consultation, also I mentioned I do energy healing. So if you were interested in a free consultation to talk to me about whatever your needs may be, you can reach out. It's mycoshift.com. That's MYCO. So myco, SHIFT, shift.com. All one word, mycoshift.com.
So that's mycompany.shift.com, right? Myco.
MyCoShift. Yep. Yeah. Myco, like mycology.
Okay, that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And Brad,
Okay.
where can they reach you at? What's the easiest way for them to reach you at?
Google it.
Google it.
Yes, just Google MagicBrad, one word, you'll find me.
Yeah, that's easy.
And I'm just
Like,
looking to help.
yeah, if you Google me and you Google Casey Peak, you will come up with stuff that is me, but you will also come up with a famous peak that people like to hike on top of, and that is Casey Peak.
Okay, I'm going to sign it off.
All right.
Okay, see you later. Be yourself in happiness. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be good, becoming nice. Dun, 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 dun.